Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. The Barrington Lake wildfire, the largest in Nova Scotia's history, continues to burn out of control. At last update, the fire still covers about 250 square kilometers, though the rain is giving firefighters a much-needed boost. CTV's Hafsa Arif is in Barrington with the latest from that region. Hafsa.
I'm at Highway 103, which is the main travel route between the communities of Shelburne and Barrington, which has been closed since last week because of the wildfires. There was hope that it would reopen. This morning, cars lined up ready to return home. We're being told fire crews are reassessing the situation. In the last few days, the area has received lots of rain, but that has impacted air traffic by preventing bombers from fighting the fire from above. As of now, the rain has stopped and winds continue to blow. We were told this can be problematic as it can dry the soil. In the meantime, these breaks in rainfall will allow air traffic to pick up once again.
CTV's Hafsa Arif reporting for us in Shelburne, Nova Scotia. Meantime, DNRR says the badly needed rain is making a huge impact on firefighting efforts, though it is also preventing aerial views of the fires.
With this weather, they have been able to fly helicopters or planes over the fire, so they want to get up, have a look, and they also want to take advantage of some of the technology around infrared scanning.
Speaking on CTV Morning Live, Scott Tingley says they're waiting on a window in the weather to fly aircraft. On the ground, Canadian Armed Forces members and American firefighters are doing what they can and assessing the impact the rain is having and when roads can reopen, like Highway 103, as Hafsa mentioned, and when people can return home. Meantime, the wildfire that destroyed 200 structures, including 151 homes in the Tantramar area, is now listed as under control. And some of the 16,000 people forced to flee that fire are finally returning home. CTV Sarah Plowman has more from the command center. And Sarah, the nightmare is far from over for some residents.
The good news is that many more people in this area are waking up in their own beds. They were able to get back to their homes yesterday afternoon as evacuation orders in this area have been lifted for some, but there are still so many people who aren't able to go home yet. It's not safe to do so, and they are anxious to get back to their properties to see them with their own eyes. Now, the city is having to do a lot of things to make sure it's safe for people to return home. First of all, the fire is still not out. It's under control. It's been contained, 100% contained, but it's not out. And fire crews are still having to fight hot spots in many different areas. As well, the city is going to have to do things like assess the air, the water, the soil quality. There's a lot of different ways that contamination can happen because of a fire, whether it's the fire itself or the chemicals used to fight the fire, or also perhaps from the fire damage. People who are returning home today are doing so, coming back to areas where it's safe to do so. But we're also telling people, been told, when they come home, people are going to see things that might affect them. They're going to see things like homes demolished, destroyed, maybe their neighbor's home is still standing. These are very difficult things to see in a neighborhood where they've lived and loved living for a long time. This is going to be a difficult week for a lot of people, whether they're allowed back today or in the days to come. Sarah Plowman, CTV News in Upper Tantramar, Nova Scotia.
Thank you, Sarah. And as of midnight, Nova Scotia's premier ended a ban on activity and travel in the woods, but the burn ban is still in place.
But I'm also pleading with anyone who's going into the woods, don't be stupid. Be safe, be fire smart. Don't flick a dart. Don't have a bonfire. Don't do something that could start a fire. Be responsible.
However, restrictions on activity and travel in woods is still in place for Shelburne County and anywhere where there's an evacuation order. Now, those activities include hiking, camping, fishing, and the use of off-road vehicles in the woods. The province-wide burn ban, that remains in place until June 25th or when conditions allow. And the fine for violating that ban is $25,000. Over in New Brunswick, the town mayor says the wildfire near St. Andrews is considered contained. In a tweet, Brad Henderson shares the news and credits the hard work of the Department of Natural Resources, volunteer firefighters, and Mother Nature, the Stein Lake fire. It started more than a week ago. According to New Brunswick's Forest Fire Watch website, there have been 176 forest fires to date in the province so far this year, above the 10-year average. Officials remind residents a province-wide burn ban is in place there as well. Now, as you heard, this dumping of rain is a welcome sight, and it sounds like it's not ending anytime soon. Let's bring in meteorologist Kaylin Mitchell in the CTV Weather Center. Kaylin, we really wanted this rain, and now we have it.
Yeah, and overall, it is a net positive for so many situations around the Maritimes, of course, when it comes to the wildfires. But there were parts of the region as well that were starting to creep into a bit of an agricultural drought. So the rain is good for that. And I was also starting to get reports of some low well water levels around parts of the region as well. So the wet weather should help out with that. But it is really starting to add up in some areas. It did so over the weekend. And there's really a number of days yet where we're going to be contending with some pretty soggy weather conditions here in the Maritimes. So we're going to have to watch those overall rainfall totals. So we might start to run into some issues such as flash flooding or the risk of some washouts. Temperatures are being held cooler, of course, as we're now moving into the early afternoon. Most of them around the high single digits and low teens. Very high relative humidity. No surprise there, given that all the wet weather in place. Wind direction remains mostly out of the east and northeast and sustained in a lot of cases 10 to 20 kilometers per hour, though gustier around the Atlantic coastline of Nova Scotia, where some wind gusts are coming up between 30 and 50 kilometers per hour. Here's a look at things on radar and satellite. So you can see it is overcast for all three maritime provinces. We have a band of very steady rain coming into northern areas of New Brunswick, further periods of rain building in off the Atlantic, coming in first to the Atlantic coastline of Nova Scotia and then spreading to other parts of the Maritimes from there. It's being brought in by a very slow moving area of low pressure, which is located just to the south of Nova Scotia at the moment. You can see all the moisture it's drawing off the Atlantic and bringing into the maritime region in the form of that wet weather. We have rainfall warnings for Halifax County and Guysborough County. Totals through Tuesday evening, 60 to 90 millimeters, a risk of flash flooding and washouts. And a wind warning for northern Inverness County in Cape Breton. There through Tuesday morning, there may be some southeast gusts up to 90 kilometers per hour because of the topography of the Cape Breton highlands. The remainder of Nova Scotia is underneath a special weather statement. 3-day rainfall totals coming up to the range of 35 to potentially in excess of 70 millimeters. And down around Yarmouth and Shelburne counties, because of the presence of those large wildfires, which again, as we heard, are still not out yet. There are air quality statements in effect. Locally, smoke may be bringing down the air quality, of course. I will have more on the forecast, including look at this continued wet weather, Amanda, when I'm back just a little bit later on.
Okay, thank you so much for the update, Kaylin.